Welcome back to Feeling Seen, the podcast about the movies and characters that make us feel seen. My co-host today is an actor that you may have seen in Logan, Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny, or the Bikeriders. This is actor Boyd Holbrook. Boyd stars in the new film A Complete Unknown, a biographical drama centering on the legendary singer-songwriter Bob Dylan, as portrayed by Timothee Chalamet, but also highlighting the folk city scene in New York City in the 1960s. Boyd plays the man in black himself, the iconic country singer Johnny Cash, alongside a star-studded cast that includes Edward Norton as Pete Seeger, Elle Fanning as Sylvie Rousseau, and Monica Barbaro as Joan Baez. The film is in theaters now, so hit your local up for this one. But first, our conversation with Boyd Holbrook. Boyd Holbrook, what else do the people need to know about you before we get started today?
I don't know. I mean, that was what a flattering introduction. And I like being a little unknown. I think that's good for the work. You know what I'm saying? I like to. I don't like to be anything that you can identify with me and my work. I like church and state separate.
Is there an aspect of, because I feel like people become known for a kind of thing, and they can, you become a horror actor, you become an action guy sort of thing. And is part of that process, is part of that choice mitigating being streamed into one direction or another? Or is that more of just like you said, a church and state personal decision?
Well, I don't think, I'm not a person who likes a lot of attention. I have my life and my family, and I definitely cherish that because I spent a lot of time on the road, and it's, I lived the traveling circus life on the road, sometimes 10 months out of the year I have been. And so I really, to create and have performances, I've realized I have to keep my nervous system like on a very practical level, very calm. I don't want to be seen like paparazzi'd out at a restaurant. I don't think I want to make are great characters. And so I get a chance to do that. And I really am grateful for all that. And I spent a lot of time just consumed by that. So, yeah, I think it's a little bit by design for sure. I don't want to, I'm very lucky. I get to be in really different genres and different styles of directors and things like that. So, yeah, whatever's happening, I think if it ain't broke, don't fix it.
Does it, and I feel like this is because people think of like people being in the movies and movie stars and like everybody's rich and everybody's famous, sort of a misconception about just sort of the working folks of the industry who are the blood and the muscle and the tissue. And then like there are, these box office names that we recognize en masse, but not everybody is operating in that way. Does that approach factor into success in a way that you feel like you have to push back on a pull to bring you more into limelight or to be more advertising of yourself? Or do you find that for the kind of career you want to have, there isn't actually a tension between those things?
I feel like being at the cool party doesn't really matter.
Okay.
I'm not at the cool parties because I get to go to premieres half the time because I'm on a project and I can't go. Yeah, I think it's really that doesn't really matter. I think the work, what I've always come to understand and what my dear friend Terry Knickerbocker talks about is, let the work speak for itself. Like the people I want to work with, they get it. They feel the same. They have a sort of, I feel a similar idealism about how to stuff and like what it takes, how long things take. You just literally have to move through space and time, start figuring this stuff out. And you have to fail a lot, playing an iconic person like, Johnny Cash. And there's already been a great actor who's done it in Joaquin. And so you have to, I didn't play music at the beginning of this. I couldn't play and sing at the same time. I had to literally fail until basically driving up until like, hey, we're going to start singing these songs live. And it just there's so much pressure that I love. bottlenecks into like it's fight day, dude. You signed up for this, you signed the contract, you're going in, and sink or swim. And I really love that. I love that. I don't know if it's pressure, but I just love that dynamic, that setup. Here it comes.
You know what? I think that really fits into well introducing the movie you have brought for us to discuss today. The sort of like enduring through failure and the like, all right, it's like you said, it's day of fight, it's time to show up. It's win or die. And that is one of my favorite movies of all time. One of the house favorite Cruciola movies of my upbringing. Could watch it any time a day, any place in the movie start it. Major League. Set us up for what spoke to you about Major League to bring it to this context of conversation.
Well, I thought about it, and I thought about, well, what's the artistic film that I can bring to light here? And then thought all that bullshit go away, and just like, what movie did I really like growing up?
Mm-hmm.
And I love the movie Major League. I like you just said, I could watch that movie anytime, anywhere. And it's because I think there's a band of misfits. You've got every sort of personality type. And I feel like, in a way, a beautiful statement I once heard says, you're not a part of society. Society is all inside you. Because you have all these, you can be every color of the spectrum. You can be, god awful to, a bright, helpful citizen of society.
Yeah.
You have the ability to do all that. So I think in this film, it represents the sort of gamut. And it's this team of misfits in the Cleveland Indians, and they're, set up to lose. So, and it's got redemption in there for all these characters and growth, because they're all not perfect. Great movie.
I put it on, and it is, of course, the story of, as you said, is the Cleveland Indians this is the 1980s. And at the beginning of the movie, the owner has died and his wife has inherited the team, and she has found an escape clause in the contract the team has with the city that says if their attendance falls below a certain rate, and this is a basement dwelling team, these are cellar dwellers, and if the attendance falls below a certain point, she has the right to move that team to Miami, where she would much rather live. And so she reverse moneyballs this team. She's like, who are the cheapest people I can get in the worst stages of their career that no one's heard of, so I can tank this team, run into the ground, and move to Miami. And I just starting this movie, just knowing how much I was going to laugh, I was laughing out loud when nothing was happening. And then like when she's said, like, she's talking to her executives, and one guy, they get this list for who's on the team, and one of them's like, this guy's dead. And she just looks at him and says, then take him off the list.
Good morning, gentlemen, and welcome to another season of Indians baseball. I know it may not seem the same without Donald here, but I promise you, by the end of this season, we will have made history. Unfortunately, there are some in the press who feel that the ex-showgirl wife of Donald Phelps has no business being the owner of a Major League Baseball team. Spring training begins in 2 weeks. Here's a list of the players we'll be inviting to camp.
I never heard of half of these guys, and the ones I do know are way past their prime.
Most of these guys never had a prime.
The facts are, we lost our 2 best players to free agency. We haven't won a pennant in over 35 years. We haven't placed higher than 4th in the last 15. Obviously, it's time for some changes.
This guy here is dead.
Cross him off, then.
I mean, this is one of the great comedies of all time.
It's fantastic. I mean, there's so many actors in there that give great performances. I think for me, James Gammon, if anybody wants to look that up, he plays the Lou Brown manager.
Manager Lou.
Just doesn't give a shit.
I'm not much for giving inspirational addresses. I'd just like to point out that every newspaper in the country has picked us to finish last. The local press seems to think we'd save everyone a lot of time and trouble if we just went out and shot ourselves. Me, I'm for wasting sports writers' time. So I'd like to hang around and see if we can give them all a nice big shit burger to eat.
I think that's one of the best performances ever. I love that performance.
I completely agree. And the name of the actor that is escaping right now, who does the color commentary for the team, I think this movie houses two of the great performances of all time that are not often cited enough as being as such.
Anyway, listen to the roar of the crowd as the Indians take the field. Yes, sir, they love this club here in Cleveland. Just a reminder, fans, about Die Hard Night coming up here at the stadium. Free admission to anyone who was actually alive the last time the Indians won a pennant.
It's great. I had a chance to work with Tom Berenger on Hatfields and McCoys.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Tom's incredible.
Mhm.
You got Charlie Sheen in that. You got Corbin Burnson. You've got, is it Margaret Whitten who plays the owner?
I think so. And then Dennis Haysbert in there.
Yep. You got Rene Russo. You got
Mhm.
Wesley Snipes. You got Charles Cyphers. You got Dennis Haysbert
Mm-hmm.
plays Pedro, the sort of voodoo worshiping big hitter. It's great.
Well, and something that I was reading old interviews of yours, and there was I'd reached a portion where you were, I think it was in an interview magazine conversation you had with Michael Shannon, and you talked about going to getting into a program at NYU and for film studies purposes. And you talked about in that sort of like a big navigational challenge of that period was like really finding your community and not feeling like you were finding the place that was yours. And so one of the coolest things about the construct of this podcast is like taking the movies that people present to me and getting the opportunity to consider everything I'm watching, even in movies that might feel so familiar to me, and thinking of them in the context of the person who brought it. And so reading quotes like this is a group of people who are these solo actors. Like they've just been spun off from so many other teams, or even within a team, they're so individualized, like Corbin Burnson, Dorn. And I wanted to hear from you about like that feeling of searching for your place and finding all those other sort of rogue agents who can make their way to one another to forge a team or forge a community, a creative community.
Yeah, I mean, that really reminds me of the summer that changed my life. And that, I tried to get a basketball scholarship out of high school. That really wasn't panning out at the way I wanted to. Was realizing maybe I wasn't, good enough. And then I worked at UPS, Earn to Learn. They pay your college, but you work this graveyard shift. And that didn't really work out. And, I was 19 years old and I really didn't have any options. And I really felt like I had painted myself in a corner. And then I'd sing performances and I'd watch stuff like Def Comedy Jam and Def Poetry Jam, Russellson's Def Poetry Jam. That was about all the access I had, was like a couple movies and shows. But I saw a performance and I was like, wow, I just know I could do that. I couldn't do it right now, but there's something in me that tells me like that's a version of me somewhere out there. And so I end up getting a conversation with Michael. I was just working at some rinky-dink department store, and he had come in. And
you're both from Kentucky, right?
Yeah, both from Kentucky, and I was living in Lexington. I'm from Appalachia, which is the eastern side of the state. And after I spoke to him, I realized that he's trained, and that's why actors are good. And I figured that there wasn't this mystical, you're just waiting in Iowa on a cornfield to be discovered and this great talent. No, it really takes training. And so I'd realized that. And then my sister got me a job at a theater company. I knew it. And just, this is the people that I belong to be around. And you had people coming, was repertoire theater, outdoor theater, very small, but, you know, you had kids from Florida and, you know, North Dakota coming in and Oklahoma and just all walks of life. Yeah. Finally it felt like, hey, this is my tribe here.
And when did you start really immersing yourself? Because like you went to theater and you're talking about training, you meet Michael Shannon, you have this very formative experience. When did you start really consuming movies, and what was that early education like for yourself?
I think, you know, it's a real movie that had an impact on me. I've said this multiple times, but it's so still true. It's this film Slam, Saul Smith in 1996. It came out. I'd seen that when I was like maybe 16 years old. And then that was the performance. I was like, oh, I know that. And then I think in my 20s, I really just, you know, started first getting a couple paychecks and stuff like that and buying like the Doors album, the Bob Dylan, Blood on the Tracks, you know, and just having a Walkman and just like consuming. And I did that for 3 or 4 years of movies and music, just walking around New York City, broke as a joke. I had my music and I had, you know, that's it. And you could just be out. And so, starting getting lost in it now, but, yeah, I think, that's how it kind of all started to happen. And then when I was around 24, I got into, NYU's extended film program where you can courses on lighting and writing and directing and editing, and cinematography, and you make your own shorts, and yeah, you learn on hand by doing.
Mm-hmm.
And then I was like, I still hid behind getting into drama school, saying I was going to be a director, and I just wanted to learn how actors did their thing so I could talk to them.
Mm-hmm.
But secretly, I was, I think it helped me protect myself from maybe if it doesn't work out, you know, not really exposing myself.
Another thing I read you say, I think it might have been in a Guardian article that you did, where you talked about like if there's anything else that you think you can do it, because if this isn't all, you're not all in on this profession, like you going into being an actor. If you're not all in on this job and it's not like the thing that you are, then like there's kind of no use in doing it, because it's going to kind of take too much or cost too much along the way to stick with it if your heart's not fully into it. And that, like, again, like kind of being able to connect the person that I'm talking to the movie that I'm watching. A movie that just I kept thinking of as I was watching again was Tom Berenger. Like they're in tryouts, basically. Like, are they going to get cut? And all of them are going to their lockers at the end of the day to see if they got the red card, to see if they're still there. And Tom Berenger, bad knees, catcher down on his luck, dragging himself out of Mexico leagues to like come and audition for this team, try out for this team. And he stands in front of the locker and he says, "Come on, Jake, it's just the rest of your life." And he opens it up. And he has been saved for another day. And I was thinking of that too in the context of a complete unknown. Like you go into Folk City in the 1960s in New York with that film, and you meet this group of people who they don't have a choice to be anything else but the creative path that they are pursuing. Joan Baez, what we see of Woody Guthrie, you as Johnny Cash, and obviously Timothee Chalamet as Bob Dylan.
Man, I rewatched the movie yesterday too, and that line stuck out to me again. Come on, it's only the rest of your life. And I'd set up one kind of fallback or escape plan where I bought some acreage in upstate New York, 3 hours from New York City. I had a $250 mortgage on it, and I said, well, if this doesn't work out, I'll crash here. And because I knew that I have to give this everything I have. And if it doesn't work out, I'm going to be screwed. But, you know, I just want to do this so bad. I just want to perform and love making movies and the people that I get to work around and to collaborate with. I got a little
taste
how this
of actually
it.
Works. So I welcome
so
all
hard
demystifying
to make a living in this business. You know, you probably walk home with like 37% of your check.
Right.
I don't know if it's the financial podcast you want to talk about, but
Listen, I think people have a lot of misconceptions about how this actually works. So I welcome all demystifying.
where's the top, tier that, make bukus of money, but then there's a working actor who overhead and it's just, agent manager, this and that, and it's all necessary, but it is it's a business like anything else, and it can be misconstrued. So to make it and to get through the patches of the pandemic and to get through the patches of the strike, so many people, so difficult. So yeah, I knew what I was getting myself into. I was playing with fire, but it was very exciting because I had the feeling like, well, somebody's meant to make it. I mean, it's got to be me. Why? I don't think that maybe that's an arrogance, come across as an arrogance, but it's really, from a young age, believe that you can do anything you want to do. You can really be anything you want to be. And I always dreamed about that. And then it just kind of happened this way.
And that brings up something that's one of my favorite recurring things that comes up in these conversations is the necessity of at least a sort of party helping of delusion from the people, whether it's directors or it's writers or it's actors. I remember I had a great meandering into this conversation with Mamadou Ache talking about how like just this at time, like at the start of it, at the very least, like a sort of unfounded certainty that like, well, if it's going to be somebody, it's going to be me. And based on sort of like the premise of this industry being built on somebody making a story that doesn't exist with characters who aren't real and being like, hey, I'm going to make this into a picture show, and don't worry, you're going to get your money back. And more than that, you're going to make money on it. So just trust me that it's going to work out. And I feel like no matter how much it's like trying to predict something that goes viral. No matter how much you know about the internet, no matter how much you know about the film industry, you can't ever be sure that something that you're going to make is going to like get that return you hoped for. So it's always a gamble. So like I completely like, I think you have to be possessed of a degree of that. And I don't think it's arrogance at all. I think it's the drive that makes what you do possible.
Yeah, it's like psychotic. You are going to audition for about 10 things. You might get one thing. Maybe you audition for 20 things, you get one thing.
Right.
And so you are doing something over and over again, expecting a different result. But the majority of the time, you are getting the same result, which is rejection or failure and this and that. And only over time of just sheer belief that drive and just not giving up, then the tipping point starts to overflow the other way, where Stanford Meisner said it takes 20 years to be a great actor. So happened, 10,000 hours and all these stats come up. And then only does the tipping point start to happen where, I kind of know what I'm doing now, still a student of the game, hopefully forever, because that's the fun part. It keeps me alive and having motivation to kind of keep stacking these things up.
Don't go anywhere just yet. We have more with Boyd Holbrook after the break. Then I will have one quick thing before I go. It's been an exciting development in the Feeling Seen universe, ladies and gentlemen. The movie Spy Kids has been added to the National Film Registry, so we're just going to talk about that at the very end for a moment. We're going to recognize Feeling Seen being on the pulse of film history.
Hey, Sydney, you're a physician and the co-host of Sawbones, a marital tour of misguided medicine, right?
That's true, Justin.
Is it true that our medical history podcast is just as good as a visit to your primary care physician?
No, Justin, that is absolutely not true. However, our podcast is funny and interesting and a great way to learn about the medical misdeeds of the past, as well as some current, not-so-legit healthcare fads.
So you're saying that by listening to our podcast, people will feel better?
Sure.
And isn't that the same reason that you go to the doctor?
Well, you could say that, but...
And our podcast is free?
Yes, it is free.
You heard it here first, folks. Sawbones, marital tour of misguided medicine, right here on Maximum Fun, just as good as going to the doctor.
No. Still not just as good as going to the doctor, but pretty good.
It's up there.
Who guests on Jordan Jesse Go?
I mean, we could just list Patton Oswalt, Kumail Nanjiani, Maria Bamford, whatever.
We couldn't remember all of them.
So we asked my kids.
Famous people.
How famous?
I don't know, pretty famous.
Really tiny celebrities who would go on this train wreck instead of like a big talk show.
There's just a bunch of people on your show.
Jordan Jesse Go, a comedy show for grown-ups.
Well, I mean, like your body of work is impressive, but like you look at this, if this year is any indication of like in the direction that you're going, like yes, I would say all signs point to very exciting. And tying together a few things, like, you know, we talked about like the confidence that you have to bring to sustain and like the absence of like, all right, well, I have an idea and a dream and I'm gonna have to go off that and I'm gonna have to make you believe in it too. To working the great working relationship you seem to have developed with James Mangold, and then playing Johnny Cash, and not till like it got real close to time for you to execute that you could sing and play guitar at the same time. So I do want to hear from you specifically about Johnny Cash. Like, I'm gonna be Johnny Cash. Like, how did that feel when you first accepted / were asked to, like, by the time you were on stage being it? It feels like a surreal process to become the Man in Black.
Yeah. I think first thing I said is, Jim's like, I don't look like Johnny Cash. And he said the best thing to me. He says, nobody looks like anybody. And nobody does. We're making these impressions of people, and we're celebrating their lives. And yeah, it is daunting, and it's very, very prevalent right now when you're having to talk about being an iconic person, following the footsteps of Joaquin and his great performance, and all that. And but you know, the thing, you just don't want to tarnish their legacy. And then if we're going to give an impression of these people's lives, what is it that really kind of just sticks out, and how can I make that my own? Because and everything that I've come to find out in these characters, that you have to own it. You have to own the situation. You have to make it yours. And so what is it about? You know, obviously John had a very deep, resonant voice. And I think that's something that is, you know, like, where's the voice? And then, or you don't say that and you're just transported along with it. And there's, you know, the cosmetic practicality of it. I think I came in, you know, probably 10 pounds underweight, long blonde hair down to my chin, and
really evoking Johnny Cash at that point, really channeling him in the room.
How are we going to do this, Jim? The process with him, and it's how all the other two characters were created too, is just you kind of just start shaving and shaping a little bit, and then sooner or later it's like that's it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we start putting together the look and finding out what's authentic about this and what feels like, you know, you're trying really hard.
Was there a detail that made you feel like you had found it with the character?
Yeah, I think once there was a minimal prosthetic that came along, and once that happened, it really just kind of, I didn't feel like myself anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Kids, you know, everybody's got different facial features and stuff like that, and John was very identifiable in certain way. Once that came along, I remember we hit it, and you know, that was it. And then we realized that if you put brown contact lenses in, your eyes just become black. So we had to put red or pink contact lenses in for it to become brown. And then it became something. And then so I had a couple interviews that I sort of just knew verbatim, and I knew cadence of how he spoke, and so I knew the sound, the actual physical sound, his look, and then it was really like his attitude. You know, I think you brought up the shooting at the audience with the guitar. That was something he loved to do. Came from a rambunctious sort of place, and I don't know if I can say this, an effort attitude, you know. he was unwavering in who he was, and he liked who he was, and he had a sense of humor about life. So I think if you can carry over a couple of three things, and I'd say it's probably something for everybody in this character. And really it comes down to Bob's voice, Pete's voice. If you go back to these characters, are really just the essence is really captured in Monica too.
Mm-hmm.
And so capturing the voice of these people, and I think the story is about that too. Bob keeping his voice and how difficult that is. And we're about the industry, and there's so many opportunities for you to bend the knee and to do whatever it is to make life easier, the path of least resistance.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it comes down to the choice in this movie where Bob has the choice to go that way or to go his way. And John's there to sort of guide him in the right direction.
And that's I like what you said when you started out about how thinking about Major League in terms of this conversation being like you being the cast of characters inside of there. Is there an internal like Wesley Snipes scene stealing comedy actor within the Boyd Holbrook experience?
100%. Yeah. I mean, he's the eager, he wants to be there. Yeah. He's not that great. He's fast, but he's not the total package. And I know that I felt that way in my life. I'm sure a lot of people feel that way in their life, but through focus and intention, you can add on to that. That's been, definitely a part of my life.
Well, like with like Willie, in one of my favorite scenes in a movie ever, he gets his cot carried out while he is asleep from like the dorms that they're sleeping in at this tryout. And they set him in the parking lot because he is not on the list to try out. And he hears a gun go off for a race starting for a time trial.
Shit! I've been cut already?
Who the hell is that?
And he makes his way from the bed into the field, racing from behind two men who are already running, and he beats them both to the end, like to the ending point. So by hell or high water, like they want him on this team because of that one skill.
Get him a uniform.
Is your focus been about being the total? Is it like, I want to be the total package of thing, or I want to be this one thing? I want to be these few things that people know I will show up for, am so good at that, like, you're not going to think of anybody else but me.
Yeah, my wife and I actually had a conversation around just before the pandemic happened. And, I carried over and directed like a Sam Shepard short into a short film. And I was still kind of chasing that, like developing projects, taking IP and developing it. And it's so hard to do. It's impossible to get a movie made. And we just sat back and thought about it. I said, why don't you just do one thing well? Yeah, why not? Like, I'm setting out to have the great performance of my career. And I do know that it just takes so many different factors that's why they are rare. The great performances of the great, all the actors that you could pinpoint their greatest ones, because everything has to come together. First of all, the script's got to get written. Some brilliant person usually very thanklessly gets their script made, and that has to happen. You have to be, tall enough, short enough, this enough, to get the part. And it has to be executed by professionals, and their life has to be not turned upside down. They're not going through a divorce, and it's just the things that can go on in real life. It's just wild. So yeah, I'm constantly chasing for that to happen, and it's a mad game.
Yeah, I think maybe I feel like the biggest mystery of the movie business, maybe to folks at large, is that every movie is a miracle. The
Hmm.
fact that any movie, at any scale, let alone a gargantuan one, gets made is actually an act of God willed into existence.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And so my final question to you would be then, when you realize like what you saw in performance as something that you just knew sort of only within your core could you know, because you didn't have like tangible proof to validate it. Like that's what I want to do. Like that I can do that. That's in me. To all the training you've had and the veteran career that you have formed, what has acting ended up providing for you, like in your interior, compared to what you felt it could give you at that start of your career?
I mean, if there's anything, it will humble you. That's a great place to operate from. And working in such an industry that's all about collaboration. And I really, I'm even embarrassed to say that maybe I'm good at something, but and even that feels a little cringy to say. It's given me a sense of place, a sense of purpose. I love making movies. I love being able to work with these people and to have the duty of portraying humanity is an incredible responsibility. To not to do justice to your fellow man. And so, yeah, it's a lot. I take it with a great responsibility, and I treat it so. And from that, I've been rewarded in ways that I think I just more deeply understand this bizarre thing called life.
Well, I feel like that is such a neat bow to put on the conversation that I feel like I can't do better than that as an exit line. So I will say I would deign to say you are good at this job. And as somebody who enjoys your work, I appreciate that you might be allowing yourself to come around to that perspective. So I hope you agree with full heart in that. And just thank you so much for your time and for sitting with us today, Boyd. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, my pleasure, Jordan. Thank you for having me, and look forward to seeing you down the road. And thanks for the support on the film.
If I ever do literally see you down the road, I'm going to just walk up and just bring up Major League. Like, that's what I'm going to do. Like, the entry line will just be saying a line from Major League and hopefully bullshitting about that movie.
Yeah. Any day, anytime. If I see you on the street, we're getting down to it.
Thank you again to Boyd Holbrook. You can see Boyd right now in A Complete Unknown. You can also see the Bikeriders right now on Peacock, 2 movies that have come out starring Boyd this year. Check your local theater listings and enjoy. And now that one quick thing I promised. Hey, all you Robert Rodriguez and Spy Kids and Jordan Santacana fans out there. Exciting news. Feeling Seen has really once again taken the temperature of pop culture and demonstrated that it understands the pre-canonized films that are maybe not sitting atop the AFI Top 100 like a Citizen Kane, but that are equally, I'm going to say equally, as important texts to the vernacular of cinema. The Library of Congress has announced its annual selection of 25 films to be included in the National Film Registry. And one of those 25 movies this year, you guys, is Spy Kids, the recent episode featuring director and writer and action fan and film score aficionado Jordan Santacana talking about the importance of Spy Kids to him. Well, guess what? Now the Library of Congress recognized the importance of Spy Kids to so many out there, to all of us. And I think this includes Corey McCullough, who brought Shark Boy and Lava Girl as their pick to the Feeling Seen discourse. The Robert Rodriguez family films of the aughts, early 10s, like this touched a lot of lives. These were important films to people, and I am fixated on the conversation of the new canon. What are the new classics that come after, like when people say, oh, but have you seen, like, oh, did you see The Thing? Did you see Psycho? Did you see Nightmare on Elm Street? Did you see, I mean, The Babadook, I feel like, has been consecrated at this point into something of global merit in the film conversation, around genre, etc. But what are the ones that we haven't codified? What are the ones that are mainly championed by grassroots movements of fandoms online being like, hey, this movie is amazing and legendary, actually? Listen, that's not every movie. I say it about more movies than it is true of. But I'm really excited to see the National Film Registry honoring a title like this, especially on the heels of somebody telling us how much this movie spoke to them and how it was involved in their future formation as a burgeoning filmmaker. That's really awesome. I think that is that's a cool thing in the Feeling Seen archives, and I'm really proud that we have featured the movie on the show, tipping off the Library of Congress to enshrine it into the National Film Registry. We did that. You did that. We all did that. Thank you to everybody. Thank you to Jordan Santacana. And thank you again for tuning in every week. We love you. Happy holidays. Happy New Year. Happy to have you here. That is our show. You can follow us on Instagram at FeelingSeenPod or send us an email at feelingseen@maximumfun.org. We are also on Blue Sky. Just search Feeling Seen. If you want to search me, you can find me there and on Twitter at Jorcru. That's JORCRU. Our music is by Andrew Epen. The show is produced by Danielle Huesias. Our senior producers are Kevin Ferguson and Laura Swisher, and this is a production of Maximum Fun. Happy holidays, everybody.
Maximum Fun,
a worker-owned network
of artist-owned shows.
supported directly by you.